It's The Log. I'm Charles Purcell. Oh, man, it got warm again for a day or two. Opened up the windows, spent some time outside. Pretty good, pretty good. And it was just a few days ago when it got really pretty cold and it really felt like fall. And I enjoyed that as well. You know how people complain about the weather? I'm the exact opposite of that. I seem to always love the weather. Oh man, it's raining today. Isn't it great? Oh, the sun came out. It's beautiful. And like a lot of people, I really love the fall. I always say it's my favorite time of year, and weather, of course, has a lot to do with that. But I think when I analyze this a little bit, it's the change that I like more than the weather itself. Because typically I really sort of disdain hot weather. Really kind of hot and sticky and the big old summertime feeling. If I have to order my seasons, summer would be my least favorite. But I'm discovering, after all these years, that it's the change that's the most pleasant. If it's cool for a few days, man, a warm day is great. And then it's kind of warm and breezy and summer-like, and then it turns cold and chilly, and leaves are falling, and oh, isn't it wonderful? And then that first snow of the year, oh, it's snowing, look how beautiful it is. It's the change. That's it. I know when I lived in the Bay Area for many, many years, it was so depressing that the weather was so perfect, so consistently. San Francisco's an interesting place because it's got microclimates. It literally has different weather depending on what neighborhood you're in. Because it's right there on the water, so that's affecting the weather. And the fog rises and falls. And of course, the Seven Hills, if you're up high on a hill, the weather's different than it is down in the Mission District, where it could be hot and muggy and sunshine, clear skies in the Mission District. And just a couple miles away, if you're up on a hill somewhere, you're in the middle of fog and it's 20 degrees cooler. So that was good. But there's also, outside of that phenomenon of San Francisco, there can be a consistency in California, if you've ever lived out there. It can be the same high and the same low and the same weather conditions day after day, week after week, month after month. And there were times when it was perfect. Sunshine, low 70s, not one single thing to complain about. The birds are chirping. It's a beautiful day. But if you have that same beautiful day for weeks and months at a time, it's maddening. At least it was. At least it was for me. So whatever the weather you're having right now, I hope you're enjoying it. And take my advice. It's more fun to love the weather than to complain about the weather. Oh, I love the weather today. Oh, today's earworm. Let me tell you about the birds and the bees and the flowers and the trees and the moon up above and a thing called love. Why is that in my head? It's my earworm. Boy, that song. It's been, I don't know, at least a year or so that one keeps popping into my head. I'll just wake up in the morning and when I look into your big brown eyes, it's just right there. Oh, that's all I want to see. Can't get rid of it. Can't get rid of it. Ugh, that's all right. That's all right. Earworms are like the weather. If they change once in a while, that's fine. You just enjoy the changes. I had another earworm the other day I told you about. I forgot now what it was. I guess that's a good thing. I won't try to remember that. It'll just get stuck again. Oh, speaking of songs, that time of year or that time of decade, I don't know how many times they do this. Rolling Stone, every few years, I don't know, maybe twice a decade or something like that, will come out with their 500 greatest albums of all time. Oh, I love these lists. These are so great. We've talked before about the couple of Rolling Stone lists, greatest songs of all time, greatest this and that, greatest vocalist. These lists are so much fun. I think I shared it. We shared it on the Peter Donald's music page. I think that's where we shared it. If I think of it, I'll share it over to the Charles Purcell Facebook page as well. But around here, if there's something music related, we usually share it to the. If you want to like that page, go ahead and like Peter Donald's Music. I think that's what it's called. Here, let's check it out. Yeah, facebook.com/Peter Donald's Music. So 500 best of all time. Should I spoiler alert for you? Let me do a spoiler alert. If you don't want to hear this, I'm going to give you, let's see. Well, let's go ahead and give you the top 10. Let's count down the top 10 albums of all time. And if you really don't want to hear this, if you want to be surprised, well, tough. Let's see. Top 10 starting with number 11. You can't give the top 10 of anything without starting with 11 because you'd just be too curious. Well, what just missed? Which one just missed it? I'll tell you, the number 11 is the Beatles' Revolver. And I like that choice of all the Beatles albums. By the way, I looked at the top 50, and pretty much every Beatles album is in the top 50. Pretty much, not all of them. But yeah, I love Revolver. The little joke I have, the unintentional joke, which I repeat all the time. When people ask me what my favorite Beatles album is, I say, oh, that's almost impossible to answer. But if you really held a gun to my head, I'd say Revolver. And the first time I said that, the audience laughed. This was out at the Wisconsin State Fair where I was doing a gig. And I kind of looked up and thought, well, why are they laughing? Someone had to tell me what I just said. Oh, Revolver, gun to the head. Okay, all right. Unintended pun. Sorry. So that was my unintended pun. So, Beatles' Revolver, number 11. I always put that right alongside Rubber Soul, which they were back-to-back albums. Rubber Soul came out first, and then Revolver. Rubber Soul, by the way, was number 35 on the all-time list here, Rolling Stone. So there's number 11. Number 10, Lauryn Hill, The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. Number 9, Bob Dylan, Blood on the Tracks. There again, Bob Dylan with several albums in the top 50. And this is the top 500. I love it. So I'm going to spend some time with this. I've only kind of quickly browsed the top 50. Of course, these lists inherently encourage argument and debate, and that's good. That's fine. I won't indulge in that today. I'm just going to give you the list. No arguments. Prince and the Revolution, Purple Rain, comes in number 8 on Rolling Stone's top 500 albums of all time. 1984, Prince and the Revolution. And this one, no surprise, Rumors by Fleetwood Mac, 1997, always makes this kind of list. I guess I never quite got Fleetwood Mac like everybody else did. My own response to them was, okay, well, yeah, radio hits. And maybe that was my problem, because I'm of the age when they were cranking out hits when I was deepest into music. You know, high school and just out of high school, and I was always in a band. So I guess maybe I got it in my head that I was too cool, for Fleetwood Mac, because they were too establishment pop. And I think I got that into my subconscious, and I could never hear them objectively. Maybe that's the problem. So Rumors, Fleetwood Mac, number 7. Number 6, getting down to it, Nirvana, Nevermind. 1991, Geffen Records. Nirvana coming number 6. At number 5 on the list, here we go. Top 5 albums of all time. The Beatles' Abbey Road. Abbey Road. Now this is interesting for me because, yeah, it's a great album, but it's a chore just to rank the Beatles albums themselves. And again, I put Rubber Soul and Revolver at the top of my Beatles albums. So they think Abbey Road deserves the number 5 spot. Okay, hard to argue with that. Although it has arguably the Beatles' worst song, and that is Maxwell's Silver Hammer. Yeah, I'm looking at the list here. I guess there's no getting around it. Some mega hit singles. Here Comes the Sun and Something. So George really shines on this album. Of course, those are 2 George Harrison songs. Something in the way she moves attracts me like no other lover. Frank Sinatra famously covered that song. It was one of his favorite songs. Something in the way she moves attracts me like no other lover or chick, baby. When he would introduce the song, he would say, "This is one of my favorite Lennon and McCartney tunes." Of course, George Harrison wrote it. Number 4, Stevie Wonder, Songs in the Key of Life. Oh, mercy. There's an album that holds up. If you somehow missed that along the way, seek out Songs in the Key of Life, Stevie Wonder. Da 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 ba 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 da 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 da. Oh, what fun. What a great album. Village Ghetto Land. Oh, man. Just beautiful in every way, this album. Number 3, Joni Mitchell, Blue, 1971. Yeah, no argument there. What a musical journey this woman has gone on. Starting out doing simple 3-chord folk songs on the guitar, and then just growing and growing and growing every day of her life until she gets to this just amazing sophistication of blue. And then she just continued from there. It was crazy. Now here's another choice that won't surprise you. We got number 2 and number 1 here. You ready for this? You got any guesses in your head? This is another album that always makes the top of the top on the list, ranks very high. And I guess I should go back and listen to the whole album. Of course, we're talking about the Beach Boys' Pet Sounds. Now, legend has it, and it's pretty much accepted history now, that Pet Sounds was the inspiration for the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. This sort of epic concept album. According to Rolling Stone, this completed a circle of influence. Wilson initially conceived of Pet Sounds as an effort to top the Beatles' Rubber Soul, with its vivid orchestration, lyrical ambition, elegant pacing, and thematic coherence. So, the idea, I guess, I've never been in this world of elite music making, right? I'm just a guy who's been in bands, and I've done a little songwriting myself. But the idea that these artists at the top of the charts are listening to each other and competing with each other and trying to top each other, that sounds odd to me, but I don't know. That's the way history has written this. So if you're a youngster listening to this and didn't realize that Pet Sounds by the Beach Boys was so highly regarded, and you only think of the Beach Boys as silly little surfer music, I don't blame you. I mean, that's who they were. But yeah, we should all check out Pet Sounds again. I'm going to need to do that. And now we come to number 1. You ready for this? Give me a minute to guess. Number 1 album of all time, according to Rolling Stone magazine. What's Going On? Marvin Gaye. Motown, 1971. All right, okay, no argument there. Let's read what the editors of Rolling Stone have to say. Marvin Gaye's masterpiece began as a reaction to police brutality. In May 1969, Ronaldo Obi Benson, the Four Tops bass singer, watched TV coverage of hundreds of club-wielding cops breaking up the People's Park, a protest hub in Berkeley. Aghast at the violence, Benson began to write a song with Motown lyricist Al Cleveland, trying to capture the confusion and pain of the times. He knew he had something big in his nascent version of What's Going On. But the rest of the Four Tops weren't interested, And Benson's efforts to get Joan Baez to record it didn't work out either. But one of Motown's biggest stars and greatest voices turned out to be more receptive. Marvin Gaye was in a dark and contemplative place, wounded by the death of his frequent duet partner Tammy Terrell, yearning to sing subtler and more substantive material, and mulling over his brother Frankie's horrifying tales of his recent stint fighting in Vietnam. Gaye had been keeping busy writing for and producing a group called The Originals and trying to figure out what was next. "I'd been stumbling around for an idea," he told biographer David Ritz. "I knew there was more inside me, and that was something no record executive or producer could see. But I saw it. I knew I had to get out there." So he records the song. Record executives are a little bit wary, but he pushes it through, and the rest is history. Reading again from the Rolling Stone article. What emerged was soul music's first concept album, and one of the most important and influential LPs ever made. John Legend recently described it as the voice of Black America speaking out that we couldn't always smile on cue for you. Building it all around one finished song lent What's Going On a musical and thematic through line. What's Happening Brother assumes the voice of a Vietnam vet like Gaye's brother, puzzled by a changing America and looking for work. Mercy, Mercy Me, or The Ecology, is a taut ode to the environment. Ah, yes, beautiful. Flying High in the Friendly Sky takes on drug addiction. After What's Going On, black musicians at Motown and elsewhere felt a new freedom to push the musical and political boundaries of their art. When I was struggling for the right of the Motown artist to express himself, Gaye said, Stevie knew I was also struggling for him. Stevie, of course, being Stevie Wonder. At the end of the final song on What's Going On, the lament Inner City Blues, Make Me Wanna Holler, the music shifts back into a jazzier reprise of the title track. As the album fades out, the groove continues on. 5 decades later, it still hasn't stopped. Yep. Excellent choice, Rolling Stone magazine. Marvin Gaye, What's Going On, the greatest album of all time. Not going to argue with that for 1 minute. Well, talking about great artists, I need to close the program today with a personal note and tribute to one of my great mentors. And he died yesterday at the age of 88 years old, Dudley Riggs. Now, I won't scold you if you're not familiar with that name, but you ought to be. The world ought to be familiar with the name Dudley Riggs. He pretty much invented improv comedy and sketch comedy, as has become now so familiar. The whole world of sketch and improv comedy, from Saturday Night Live to Second City and all of it. Dudley was the founder of the Brave New Workshop in Minneapolis. As a kid, his parents were circus performers, and that's how he started in show business. He performed as an aerialist, a trapeze artist, but injuries cut that part of his career a little short, so he moved on to be a stage actor and director. Well, as a young man in New York, he decided to, again, he kind of invented the form of improv. His parents, his circus performer parents, he would watch as a kid, and they would ask for suggestions from the audience, and riff with the audience. And he thought, well, you know what? Let's do that. and he did. And he toured the country with his little troupe, eventually settling in Minneapolis, where he founded Dudley Riggs' Brave New Workshop and Instant Theater Company. Now, this was a year or two before Second City was established in Chicago. And if you search the history of improv, you're going to hear all about Second City, and you might not hear about Dudley Riggs, and I think that's a shame. I think that's a crying shame. So he comes up with this idea in the mid-50s. By 1958, he's in Minneapolis, establishing his theater. And some names you might recognize: Liz Winstead, co-creator of The Daily Show, Louis Anderson, Al Franken. He and Al Franken came up with the concept of Weekend Update, which continues today on Saturday Night Live. In fact, that's what they called it. They named it Weekend Update. If you're a comedy nerd, you know the name Peter Tolan, who wrote and co-created The Larry Sanders Show with the genius Gary Shandling. Yeah, he also worked under Dudley. A lot of big names came through and worked under Dudley. So I'm part of that fraternity, and it makes me very proud and happy. And I cried. I cried yesterday. I shed some tears for Dudley. He was a wonderful guy. He was just a joy to work with as a person, as a director. And I'm not going to pretend that I was real close to Dudley, like we were great friends, lifelong friends. No, I worked for him for a couple of years. Did a couple of shows with him. I was part of the resident company there for a couple of years. But I consider him a mentor because in those couple of years he taught me more than most other people I can name combined. Number one, don't sell the joke. Number two, the concept of yes and. And number three, that theater is a church. Right. Each one of these requires a little explanation. Don't sell the joke. And that is a simple, basic rule that to this day, many entertainers, even professional entertainers at the top of their game, still need to be reminded of occasionally. To sell the joke means you really sort of hit the punchline, you make a face, it's all about the joke. Where you're telegraphing to the audience, here comes the joke. Wasn't that funny? That's death. It's death to humor. No, what you sell to the audience, what you give them authenticity. You give them character, the reality of the scene, the truth of the scene. Dudley was a philosopher, and this is why I just loved him. And this is why he had such a great influence on me. If you can find and commit yourself to the truth of the scene, the truth of the character, the truth of the situation, then the joke is going to work. The humor will be profound. And it was a great lesson. Don't sell the joke. Now, if you have any experience in improv, yes and is the founding principle. The concept of yes and is very, very simple. The yes part is that you accept the reality of the scene. Two actors are on stage together. One actor creates some reality. You're standing at the mouth of a volcano. The other actor, it's their responsibility. It's their duty to accept that reality. That's the yes. Because if you negate that reality, no, we're not standing at the mouth of a volcano. We're about to blow out the candles on your birthday cake. You've destroyed the scene, and you've destroyed the trust between actors, which is fundamental to the success of improv. So yes, you must accept what's happening. You must accept the reality that the other person has brought to the scene. It's the only way to move forward. And speaking of moving forward, that brings us to the and. The and of this equation means you add information. Yes, I hear you. We are standing at the mouth of a volcano. And those large birds flying overhead look rather menacing as well. So the and means that the second actor now has added information about the scene. Accept what's there, then add information. And that's how a scene moves forward, and that's how you find the realities. That's how you find the opportunities for the joke. Improvisation is discovery more than anything else. When you watch improv actors, they're not rapidly thinking in their heads, they're not writing on the fly. No, they're seeped in the reality of the moment, discovering the scene along with you. It's a beautiful art form. It's just beautiful. You might think that their minds are just racing a million miles a minute. They're up there writing jokes in their head and then presenting them. No, that's not at all what's happening. It's the yes and method at work. Yes, those birds do seem menacing. And I believe if I'm able to grab onto one of their legs, they could save us from this volcano. Yes, they could. Now you got something going here. All of a sudden you're flying through the sky under these birds, and I think you're going to find plenty of opportunities for humor here. So Dudley taught me yes and he also taught me that the yes and method of improv is a philosophy for life, that you accept the reality of life. Now, by accept, that doesn't mean that you condone. There are bad things. There are white supremacists. There are Republicans. There are bad people doing bad things. So by accepting the reality of that, you're also accepting your responsibility. To accept is not to condone. It's to understand the reality that life is presenting you. And then your choices moving forward are based on that reality. And so important to the concept is that you do not ever negate another person's reality. So even if I'm confronting a white supremacist, and my first urge is to tell them how wrong they are, it won't move the scene forward. It will shut everything down. It's a lesson I'm still trying to learn today. It's a technique that can never be perfected but must always be practiced. No, you don't forgive the white supremacist. You don't condone the white supremacy. But you do acknowledge the other person's reality. And by adding information to the scene, with the and part of the equation, if you remain engaged with your fellow actor or your fellow citizen on this earth, if you remain engaged, the two of you can find truth together. But only if you remain engaged. It's not easy. But it's a beautiful concept, and one I believe in. And Dudley Riggs taught me that. And then, as a result, I discovered for the first time the sacredness of theater. No metaphors here, no hyperbole. This is literally true for me. I'm a young atheist. I'm in a theater that Dudley has created and infused with his spirit. And he instilled in every one of us this respect for what's happening in that moment. Truth with a capital T was so important to him. Truth from the actors. Truth as motivation. And he absolutely insisted that his actors bring that truth to the stage and present it as a gift to the audience. And then accept that reciprocal relationship with the audience as a gift and as part of the magic. There's a magic, there's a spirituality, there's a deep philosophical underpinning to authentic theater and what's happening in that space. And up until then, I'd just done a lot of theater, like a lot of people do theater, both on the amateur stage and professionally. And it's fun, and it's fulfilling, and it's creative, it's artistic. If you've ever done any theater, you know how satisfying it can be. Wonderful relationships are formed among the cast and crew when you're working so closely together in this kind of a undertaking. So there are a lot of good things about theater. But Dudley Riggs was the first person to introduce to me the sacredness of the art form. He really was just a beautiful, beautiful man. And I will always be so grateful, infinitely grateful, for the short time I spent with him and for the life lessons he shared with me. So long, Dudley. That's The Log. I'm Charles Purcell.